rugged.
Out and out brown cow. Unique New York.
Oh my God.
Right before we got on this live, she gave me shit for clearing my throat.
His throat's clear.
Now it is, because I cleared it. And now I have a deep, authoritative, manly voice that people will listen to.
That's enough.
I love you.
I love you.
We are sitting here in the aftermath of dinner. A conscious cuisine made by the lady Alexa, who's quickly becoming a world-renowned chef. Or at least Belle Chase's finest here in the outskirts of New Orleans, Louisiana.
Plankton's Passage.
Or Plankton's Passage, as we've come to know in Plaquemines Parish here. Because they call parishes, or they call counties parishes.
We call them, no, parishes are parishes.
You're a parish.
We never had a county.
I'll show you a parish.
That's enough.
It's a county. Anyways.
It's not a county.
We've been, as part of our conscious cuisine, we are tuning into some conscious television. And
what is conscious cuisine and conscious television?
So we've started doing this funny thing where we label everything that we might have in the past looked down upon, or like past versions of ourselves that mindlessly watched TV or ate shitty food.
That's not conscious.
That's unconscious. That's not conscious. Unconscious.
Right.
But now that we're elevated, conscious people,
we give things consideration.
Yeah, and it's
we
just
have an element of consciousness.
We have conscious soda that we make that's really bomb.
That's Ohio in Louisiana.
Oh, you don't know me.
I don't.
Don't act like you know me in front of the people.
Anyway, we're adulting.
Yes.
and we're domesticating like pretend bosses.
Yes.
Which means we get to watch the news or something.
Yeah, and so to that point, we shared with one another our aversion to news and current events, but like our strong desire to understand what's going on in the world around us. Because there's so many resources to do so, but also the resources make it like, okay, well, what the fuck is real? What's important? What is giving us the information as it actually is? Because if anybody can attest to this scenario here, I've grown up with a lot of Fox News on the television, just on as the background noise. With grandparents that I lived with growing up, my dad, mom, like a lot of my family, a lot of the Fox News type of influences, and that, yeah, I guess you could call propaganda, dare I say.
It's just bias.
Yeah, it's very biased.
There's no beating around the bush. A lot of the news sources are biased in one particular kind of direction. So where you get the information that's unbiased, that leaves you the ability to make the decision of how you feel about it.
Totally.
It's on you to choose how you really feel about it. And what I've done for the greater part of my adult life, I should say, is just avoid it completely.
Totally. Same
because
here.
I also didn't feel like if I didn't get all of what the information that was available to me, then I couldn't really form a fully well-rounded opinion.
It's another big
which
one.
Means I could stay away from having the difficult conversation.
Yep. It's kind of like an ignorance is bliss type of thing, right? It's like, well, if I don't really know about it, then I can get away with not having the conversation because I don't have a good enough argument because I'm arguing about it, right?
This is a moment where I go, "Hi, Mom," because I saw she's on with us.
Oh, hi, Mama D.
Mama D.
Nice of you to tune in on
this. It's going to be a great combo.
Saturday evening.
In our
all
living
that to say, we have started watching Vice pretty regularly. So, like I said, she makes our conscious cuisine. We're watching it a few times a week.
Because we have this television altar.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
most living rooms have the altar of the television.
And it never gets turned on until recently because as we got her cable set up and we've been settling into her internet rather, it's like $10 more to have the TV. So we're like, okay, fuck it, we might as well do it. And so now with this new ability, we're like, okay, well, what can we watch to like actually edify our minds and enjoy the experience? It's on purpose instead of passive.
Use the word edify?
Yeah. You like that?
Yeah.
That turned you, seems like it turned her on in this moment. Did you feel that shift like I just did?
I love words.
You love me, and I love you.
In words.
In words.
Okay, anyway.
So, Vice. And so we've been, they're only like 30-minute weeklies that they do. It's like a series that's ongoing. They do all kinds of awesome current events that are happening all throughout this massive world that, again, I don't know a lot about what's going on outside of my own world. And so this has been our way to get good news. And we're going to talk about a lot of topics, I think, in the future. This is an experiment in that little coffee table conversation here as we sit on the floor in our living room. And tonight's topic.
I insisted on having the coffee table in between me/us and the camera. So you're like on the coffee table because as much as I'm involved in taboo conversations that have to do with sex and sexuality, there are some aspects and some topics that I don't even allow the conversations to go down in my community spaces. If it has anything to do with I would say abortion or transgender or something, it really just depends, the fine line, because people can go 0 to 100 so quickly that it's impossible to take them out of that space to have a real relating kind of conversation. It's like past the point of relating, so much so that it has a negative effect on community. It's just like attack, building.
Defense. There's not like a good elevating conversation.
And there's certain aspects of those topics that I'm just like, I'm not equipped to handle.
Sure.
And so I didn't trust my ability to be able to have a conversation if I just kept saying I don't know enough about it.
So what we're doing here is I'm doing this live on my channel, so you can say whatever you want, and I'm going to say whatever I want. It's my channel.
I guess so. There's
I'm
so
half
many
kidding,
times
but
where I don't even say what I really feel because I'm just like so caught in a paradox of sorts, like how I feel.
Totally. And I think that's okay. That's actually beautiful.
Yeah, that's exactly as we just watched Vice, which I think you're leading into.
Yep.
That was about transgender.
Yes.
And
we were having this epic conversation about it.
Yeah.
Just totally, because obviously we're comfortable with one another. We're just sharing our opinions, as ill-informed as we might be about stuff, but just like thinking, what do I feel in my heart as I'm watching these different scenarios? Because this episode,
pointing to the TV, because Vice is now currently
and I'm
showing
actually turn this off.
We can turn this off, but I'm also equally interested because
it's got another
because
awesome
the Earth
thing
is
happening.
melting.
Yeah, as we all know, like all these crazy things are happening.
What's happening? Anyway,
so the transgender.
Yeah, we
had
a normal epic conversation of sorts that it was like. Anyway, it led to us wanting to press live.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So to provide a little bit more context, they were following 3 different people's journeys. And there's 3, right? 4. Yeah, 4. And so 4 different ages. They had somebody who was a young lady/man that was 5.
A little girl.
Yes.
A little girl.
It was 5.
Yeah,
one that was 10. One that was 15.
8. 15.
5, 8, 15, and like 20 or something like that, or 18 maybe. Yeah. So a good range, right? And it's showing all the parents and how they've like managed this situation with a son or daughter that identified with the opposite sex. And so then they're going through all these processes of like, pre-puberty to during puberty to post-puberty and all of the medical interventions that we now have that can address those things.
Cross hormone therapy.
Yeah.
I think we were speaking to each other like as a couple who, we've done a Facebook Live where we talked about pregnancy tests, that kind of thing, right? So it's a possibility that some stage we will be parents.
Sure.
And so for us to try to put ourselves in that position, but then the truth is no matter how many times we reasoned it out, we still, we just kept going, and not in circles, but it's like we got past the point of the little girl at 4 or 5, and then it started hormone blockers and cross therapy, and then it was like what we attempted to put ourselves in the parents' shoes, and it was like what would we do?
Well, exactly. What was so awesome about this though is in that 30 minutes I feel so much more educated. I didn't know like a lot of that stuff. As far as like the pre-puberty hormone blockers, and then which is like it's a halting of the process, which is reversible, right? So it's just stopping things, but once you stop stopping it, it goes naturally.
Right.
This is the way it was explained to me just now. But then there's a kind of a short window there where you do that as like, for this one Max, this young woman or this little girl who's wanted to be a man.
Even having the conversation.
I don't know how to say it. It's like really difficult. I'm not really trying to censor myself, but I'm just trying to say it in a way that makes sense to both me and to the person I'm talking to.
And is also respectful.
Yeah, exactly.
But then is also is respectful to the people who are really sensitive.
Yeah.
I think it's really difficult to
navigate.
And to be anywhere close to politically correct, even if you want to be politically correct.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
And I find that, and I'm truthfully not terribly concerned about this, but on some level, the social justice warriors out there and like the people that are looking to be,
that are going
to
out
take
of their
something
way.
personal, to be what's the word, like a triggered, or just like looking to be offended is what I was looking for.
Looking to be offended.
Yeah, just trying to be offended. And so, anyways, and we found this person that was 8. They were getting the hormone blockers, right?
Right.
And
a little implant.
Yeah, a little implant to stop it.
It looked like birth control, like that birth control that you can get anyway.
And then the idea is when they get into their teens, then they start doing cross hormone therapy, which is where they transition, which is not reversible. Once that process starts, there's no turning back.
Right. Mm-hmm. It can be. It could cause irreversible damage, like infertility.
Yeah, infertility. And there's a spectrum and lots of different things. One can just be, your voice is just going to be different than it would have been. That might be one of the more mild ones. You might grow breasts or not grow breasts.
Or grow broader. Things that are pubescent traits of the opposite sex. With
the most extreme, so to speak, are infertility. And maybe other things that they didn't even mention there. Like I don't know if it, like disease, cancer, those kinds of things, when you're messing with that kind of stuff. They didn't mention that, and maybe I'm just making this up, but it doesn't seem like it'd be far-fetched when you're really, I'm gonna say something a bit controversial here, but like playing God in a sense. Like you're literally going against what your natural biology is
wants
going
to
into.
Do, what will do.
Yeah.
Right? And then to have that conversation and to let that conversation progress, but then to put yourself in maybe in the shoes of the parents who are ultimately making the decisions for the kids, and the kids are saying one thing, like the little girl at the beginning, her mom basically just completely like shared so vulnerably and openly, and was like, from 2 to 4 years old, she has been saying, "Mom, I'm a girl," mm-hmm. And she would spank her, and she would get to a point where she's like, "I can't spank my child
in Texas,
anymore."
Like Bible Belt.
Yeah, I can't spank my child anymore.
I had deep empathy for her, because you could just feel her heart of like desperation
crying,
and just wanting to like support her child. Yeah. And so then we were saying, okay, let's play parent here. Like, what would we do with our kids? And how would we address this situation? And it was like a great conversation. That's why we were like, hey, let's record this, because I bet a lot of people have considered these things, or would even just like to have the conversation because they haven't considered it, and it's becoming more prevalent in the world.
And what does it look like to have a conversation that everybody can participate in it? You can participate in it.
Even
it's
if you
not
don't
you
know.
Are right or you are wrong.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And you are a bad parent or you're a good parent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What does it feel like to have just a normal conversation where you leave and you could still have whatever your opinion is, mm-hmm. but not be hurt and not want to hurt others. Yeah. We can all coexist in the conversation.
Yeah, complete just understanding and like, just openness around that. And so I'm going to share the conclusion that I came to. And that was that while I so would support, and I'm saying this from somebody who doesn't have a child, but this is how I feel in this moment, and especially after watching that and talking to you about it, my child, I would not support them taking any kind of hormone blockers, and certainly not cross like hormones, like to change
transitional
hormones. Now, but I would support them from an emotional level, as far as like, if you identify with that, I fully support that. But using science to change your body permanently from what its natural biological place to unbiological. And even as I'm saying it, I feel like I almost
like
am
it's hard.
Like it's hard.
It's hard to.
But
really
that is my opinion right now. That is my stance of what I would do for my child.
Right.
I would be so tolerant and supportive and fight for their like rights and all those things, because they're also showing in here like the transgender bathrooms and how that is an example of segregation and like the new age, and what that could mean,
and then I step in and completely understand and support you with your opinion and those kinds of things. And I say, you know what, it's a case by case thing.
Totally.
And you would only know
when you're there,
when you are the parent. So for you to have that stance now, it's beautiful. But then I also, just like they were saying in the show, is that the attempts at suicide is at 40% for the transgender community, and that's a real thing for parents. And for them to fear, I would rather, now we can continue having the conversation. It's a loop, right? Because it's like, I would rather do whatever it takes to keep my child alive.
Oh yeah,
I will do whatever it takes. But then there's also the other side of that that's like, who's going to win a battle with a child or a teen that could be potentially either suicidal, but could just want attention or affection or whatever.
Totally, yes.
But those are different things, and I think the conclusion of that conversation wound up being like, to be parents that actually know what's going on with their children. And we are not parents. We have a dog child.
We do.
He's over there at our feet. But that's the thing. Like, we will only ever know when we decide to do that. And that is so, like, I almost get choked up just thinking about it. Like, that's so scary. It's so scary because you want to do whatever, even for a child that I don't have. Like, I would want to do anything and everything. But I think that the moral of that is just to, like, actually know what your kid, what is happening with them, you know?
Like cultivating, I love you. I love how much you feel.
Thanks.
Yeah, and
we love you.
Yeah. Having such a deep sense of awareness and a malleability, that's the word that's coming up to me, is like, I'm so open to changing my mind on almost anything. Like, there's very few things I think, that's never going to change. Let me share something with you. About 10 years ago, just around 10 years ago, to me, being gay was wrong and you were going to hell. And I did not support gay marriage. 10 years ago. I'm 30 years old. When I was 20, that was just my belief. It was fact to me. Now, I'm like, that is comical. Like, that is like absurd.
I'm like offended of my previous self.
Exactly. Like at one point I would have been embarrassed to share that. Or I would have not said that.
Myself so far from that person. I was the same way. I say that it took me to actually fall in love with, like, my first gay friends.
Sure.
Living on a ship, being away from home and away from this area. That I actually had such conflicting moments that I was brought to tears, which isn't that difficult, but I was brought to tears because of how I loved for them and how I was no longer going to let that be wrong. That they showed me such kindness that even people in my everyday life refused me, but were everything that I was striving to be like. But these people that I was always told my whole life were wrong and you should not associate, it's all a sin. Now it's just wild. It's just wild.
We got some awesome people tuning in. Brig, I love you too, man. Good to see you on here. We got Russell, Nick too. There's so many more things that are coming up. I'm having fun, so let's keep going for a little bit longer. A big part of this too. Okay, a couple things that were coming up. One was the suicidal attempts, and this was the point of. We were looking for some clarity on this, and maybe we'll look it up after this. But at least what Vice put on the TV, it was a graph of suicide attempts, and it specifically said attempts by teenagers, right? And it had transgender versus the regular population, and transgender was like 40-something%, whereas regular population was like a few percent or something. It was like a huge gap. So clearly there is something there. Now, this is where it's tricky when you're looking at statistics and any kind of like science in general is cause and effect. Just because there's a correlation does not mean there's a cause and effect. So once I became like kind of aware of that, I started, as I look at those things, I become very skeptical. Not there's some energy there to be explored for sure, but it's like, but a lot of people will use that kind of data to say, this is
And
this is causing
fact.
that, and this is fact.
This
it's
is
like,
fact,
whoa.
yeah.
With multifaceted conversations like this, where there's just so many variables at play, you got to be really careful. I challenge myself to be really careful not to come to those conclusions, because they can be like insidious in the background, and on the subconscious level, I create this story of like what I believe to be reality when it's not.
Right. Anyone who doesn't believe that is morally insufficient and should go to hell.
Exactly. And a past version of myself, that's the unconscious thought process they would happen.
You are emotional. You are morally insufficient.
Yeah. Whoa. And so some of the things that were coming up as I saw that, I was like, well, what is behind that statistic? On some level, intolerance, sure. On some level, like,
oh yeah, what is
angst.
What is it from? What is it caused
exactly.
from?
What is the cause? What are the many causes?
Is it because they're not getting their? You said that. Is it because they're not getting their way? And then I responded, or is it because they have parents that are attempting that are not,
shaming them,
and
not accepting
and
them,
a world around them that is shaming them and not accepting them? What is the cause of that?
And I bet the answer is F all of the above, or D, E all of the above.
Yeah.
It's a combination of many factors, and each scenario is unique. There's all those unique factors can be at play on some level.
Is a fact.
Totally. And one perfect example to play into what we're talking about here is one of the 5 people that they were looking at was the dude was like 18.
The dude.
Yeah, but he was like transitioning into being a woman.
Right.
And she was saying how she was describing some of the situations in her home life.
She said, that when
her dad and mom both said a couple really fucked up things. What were they?
When she was much younger, this is pre-pubescent.
Yep.
Came down the stairs in his sister's tutu, and the father, and this is her firsthand account, like we heard it, from her. This is the quote: is that you will go take that off right now because I didn't raise my son to be a faggot.
Yeah.
My son is not a faggot.
Yeah.
And then later she wound up telling her mother, as an early teen, I am a woman.
Yep.
And the response was, basically stop with all of that, because I brought you into this world.
And I can take you out.
And I can take you out. And I don't know how many of you have lived your life with parents that have ever told you that.
That's like a classic phrase.
Like, I brought you in, I'm going to take you out. Yeah. Like, sorry.
And like a heat of passion and like irrationality. And so
what would be the reason for her?
Yeah.
Imagine
that's like insane
several
intolerance.
Years of life.
Sure.
That wild shaming.
And at the same time, I'm hearing one side of the story here.
Right.
It sounds pretty compelling, certainly at face value, but I don't know what else happened around there, because we've been listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson lately, which is so relevant to this conversation, because that's how he got his name, was because he was a professor at a university in Toronto, I believe, and the transgender stuff is there's a lot happening around that movement there, and he was a strong voice of kind of providing his opinion around that.
Did he not want to use the Zer pronouns?
He was saying, he actually was saying that I refuse this being a law that I will follow, that I have to, that it was something, gosh, I don't want to misquote this, but it was basically saying, I don't believe, because there was 90 different pronouns. Yeah, there was 90 different pronouns that were thrown out there that were now acceptable, and you have to address someone by Z or Zer, otherwise you are breaking the law because you don't know what they identify with. So basically, what he argues is that
change your language.
And what's the first sign of a culture that is adopting communist type of policies is challenging or making you use certain language, basically policing your language. And I'm not super well versed on this stuff, so I'm trying to play delicately here and say it in the best way I know how.
But even for those of you who joined us in the middle of whenever this conversation, the whole beginning of this was talking about how we normally don't have, we're in the practice of radically sharing and being radically honest, though we are, if I am going to be very radically honest in this moment, is that we are choosy with the topics that we were radically honest about and that we are interested in. But these things are conversations that we have but are tricky and are difficult. And so anyway, we were saying you are being delicate with your conversation because I could say fearful of not having a well-rounded enough opinion to actually share what our conversations look like? Do we have to have every single piece of information?
Before I can give what my
imagine
opinion is
now
in
you
this
need
moment.
to know all about communism, and now you need to know all about if you know all about communism, then you need to know about all the other isms.
Totally.
And you need to know all about language.
Yeah.
And history.
Exactly.
Now you need to know all of this stuff in order to have any thoughts.
and I don't subscribe to that. No way. Where I'm having a conversation here, I'm a human who is intrigued, interested, and just curious, just continually, eternally curious.
Right. So Jordan Peterson is saying he's not subscribing to the blah, blah, blah.
Yes. And so he also talks about parenting and good parenting. He calls it good enough parenting. And it's where you don't control your children, but you also have extreme patience with them, and the idea is to raise them in such a way that they are socially how does he describe it? He says
socially palatable is what comes up first.
But he
people
said
want them.
Socially desirable. That's what he says.
Socially desirable.
And
people want to have your kid over.
Yeah,
and people
they're pleasant to be around.
Pleasant. They're
share, respectful. They're curious. They're kind.
Right.
All those things.
Because
right? Good qualities that I think we can universally agree on.
Right, because if your kid is not those things,
they're
going to
be an outcast.
They're going to have a
tough
hard
life.
time with adolescence and beyond.
Yeah,
that's just yes.
Yeah, and so we're going off some fun little tangents here, but where I was getting at for that was for this person who was 18, and she is now fully transitioning into being a woman, is going through all of the hormone therapy, breast augmentation, all these things.
Yeah, you said augmentation. I thought you were going to say breast implants augmentation.
She said, that's the terminology.
That is. You did it. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm learning. And she was saying how she was upset that her parents didn't support her doing this before she was 18. That she because now she's at a point where she has these masculine features that can be changed. But if she had gotten this hormone therapy before, then she could have been more what she identifies with as being a woman in her heart and her essence and her being in her mind, what she had just relates to, and so.
What she is on the inside.
What she is on the inside. And she doesn't feel like she's out on the outside. So now she's going through the surgeries and stuff are much more intense, I guess you could say, to get her to where she wants to be physically, which aligns with her internal state. And so this is
that is a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Right.
And so this is where it's where you feel into the situation as a parent, is my belief. This is what I intend to do if I were to ever encounter this kind of thing, and anything that I encounter with my kids that I may or may not have. Is to feel into the situation and to also be the leader, which means making tough decisions sometimes, and sometimes even making some wrong decisions, and then doing your best to course correct as you experience those things. And with this situation, as we know with that person, she said that her parents, dad said the comment about faggot that was totally unacceptable and really sad to hear, and the mom just complete intolerance from what I can tell. And then she gets to this point where she's 18 and she wants to change, and she does. And so where do you get to the point where you say, okay, I want to support you, I want to empower you to be the person that you want to be and that you feel you are, but also taking a stance and being a parent and a leader and saying, you're not just going to get your way because you asked for it and you're stomping your feet and raising hell. And again, I'm just saying there's many situations, and obviously this is a big example of something. I'm not saying that happened here or that happens all the time, but how do you determine when that's happening and when it's not?
This is the deeper question
for
exactly.
us. And that's
people
where we're
who
at.
aren't parents.
Yeah.
That is, I think, where we both stop and are
I don't know.
How the fuck would we know? Yeah. And it is easy to say, you just have to know what is going on with your kids. But, I think a lot of parents think that they know what's going on with their kids because they live with them. But
sorry to cut you off.
No, that's it.
What got me thinking in a way that I'd never thought before, amongst many things in this Vice series, this Vice Weekly we were watching, was the youngest one. Kai was her name. And she's only 5. And she was born a boy. And had said since she was and the mom was saying it was so clear. Mom was correcting, was following the conventional wisdom of her Texas upbringing, spanking the kid to make him right or make her into what she's supposed to be. Stop saying that, all these things.
From 2 years old.
And then you can watch this woman sharing her journey up to this point, and she's just so I just felt her heart so strongly, where she just wants to support her child in the best possible way. And she finally came to the conclusion that, like, this, I have felt into this, I have done both what I feel is now wrong in this moment and what feels right, or what felt wrong then and what feels right now. And she's now like a strong advocate for transgender rights, and is raising her, what was a son, into being a daughter. Now she's well away from the hormone stuff that is irreversible. And even before like the blocker stuff. So she's got like some tough decisions to make, as I imagine a lot of parents do. But that was where I like an empathy in a way that I had never known or experienced came up, where I was like, man, I can't imagine being in that situation. And I only can when I'm there, or when I experience somebody I know firsthand or closely.
Right. Oh, and then to completely shift this, but not at the same time, but to be in the position of a parent who might lose their kid. Because we have someone with us now that we have, conversations with his parents in fear of losing a child.
Totally.
So this is just like...
It's like, you'll do anything, yeah. And then they said that, like a couple of them said, I'll do anything to save my child. Yeah.
Kelly had a big question, which I couldn't, if I could go... we could even bring her on if she wants to come on. So is it our identification and acceptance of different genders in a physical sense that needs to be shifted, or is it more about an understanding and acceptance of the energy, essence, acceptable behavior of a person that we need to shift as a society?
That is such a...
If it makes sense.
That made complete sense. It was like such a well-thought out question. And I think you kind of answered the question within the question. In my opinion, is the latter half of it is, in my opinion, what is the most pressing issue is an acceptance of the identification from that person. With also, and this is where I'm channeling some of my Jordan Peterson, it is also an acceptance of biological reality and science on a level that is like, okay, this is matter-of-factly what it is at a physical level. Now, beyond that, there's so much metaphysical shit that science cannot explain. Holy shit. Like the stuff about like when you like sing to water or music into water and it changed the chemical structure of water. Have you seen those crazies? Like those things cannot be explained. Like physics and like dark matter and all the like the universe. So science is not God. If I can say God is God, which I don't even know what that is, because it so transcends what I can even think or imagine, and my logic, which is so beautiful about it.
And your language.
Yeah.
It transcends all of that.
Did you interpret anything else from that question that you want to dig into?
I mean, I'm not really 100% if I start to ramble, if it would even really make sense. Is our identification and acceptance of the different genders in a physical sense. And I have to tell you, like, this is my business, my brand, all of the things that I do has to do with sex, love, and relationships.
Which is under the
and
umbrella.
Alternative relationships and acceptance of sexualities and everything. And there are times where I'm like, holy fuck, I don't even know where to begin with the gender is different to sex, and sex is different to this, and this is different to that, and sexuality expression is different to this. And like, I, on a base level, understand and then can describe it to people, but when it comes time to like, but what is your opinion on it? I'm like, I like don't want to seem willy-nilly, but I will say to a person, what would you like? Okay, if it's not offending me to give you what you like, to be called what you want to be called, to experience you as you want to be experienced, that is not hurting me at all. I want to connect with you. So in order for me to connect with you, I will embrace you and your differences. I don't understand people from all over the world. You know, they have their own culture and their own tradition and their own language. I cannot understand any of that stuff, but they are human, you know, and you know, I can relate to an extent. So I don't even know if that little babble gives you any clue, but I don't know what society needs to do is to find their humanity, tune in with that, their ability to be empathetic. What if that was your best friend? What if that was your child? What if that was your parent?
Yeah.
So it's different. I want people to feel included, but I also don't want them to lose their humanity while they fight for that inclusiveness.
And I think that the ultimate theme here is acceptance. Yeah. And you can dissect that in any way you want to, but really it's acceptance. And the last thing I'll say about this specific topic of transgender that was the most interesting thing to me, or the most difficult thing for me, was the age piece. That's what changes the whole conversation to me, because at what age is it appropriate as a parent and as the child to make irreversible decisions with something like a gender identity? And where does the line draw between being a parent and being like a friend of your kid? And there's a lot more to dissect there. But
I mean, we can pose that question to you guys, because this is not a one-sided conversation.
Please.
This is like us having a dialogue, but also having a dialogue with you guys. What would you do? How do you feel? You know, and before you say something that's just, maybe the first thing that pops into your head, and question it. Is it what you truly feel, or is it what the society around you has imposed upon you? And that's what's coming out? Is it a tradition? Is it a reaction because of a tradition? Is it faith-based, but does that faith feel intuitively and does it feel real, or where is it coming from? Before you share, and what are your real concerns? Like on a real, I'm concerned kind of level. Like, if this were my reality, this is what would be my concern. I think that these conversations are so important, so interesting. We've been avoiding having them. I've especially been avoiding having them.
And the thing that helps me more than anything to navigate these conversations and to enjoy them, like I've throughout just this conversation of having with you and like watching these little like mini documentaries that we've been doing lately, I've been getting like these feelings of euphoria. Like, I feel like I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm being contemplative, I'm using my brain and just like thinking in ways that I never had before. And what I was getting at here is that navigating these conversations helps when I have a community of people to have the conversation with that are not like-minded but are like-hearted. That's a quote that I drop all the time from my buddy JP Sears. He likes to surround himself with like-hearted people, not like-minded, because like-minded, that just gets into groupthink, and I'm not considering anything outside of what my community all thinks collectively. But when I'm tapped in with people that are like-hearted but are from different cultures, beliefs, backgrounds, and they have completely different mindsets and perspectives, but we're all coming from the same heart of love and understanding and acceptance, those are some juicy conversations that are really fun.
For sure. I'm excited to keep exploring this with you. I think my aversion even, which is interesting, it's kind of like wanting to not date for a long time because I'm afraid I'm going to make the same mistakes that I made at 19 or 20 or however old I was.
And then you found me.
No, silly. What? But then not acknowledging any of the growth that I've done in between that age and this age, and thinking that my lack of growth at that time or like doesn't apply.
Yeah.
Maybe it was maybe a little bit of it kind of had this like interesting aha moment. It was like, maybe I want to stay away from the news because I was afraid I couldn't trust myself with the information.
Totally.
Like, I couldn't handle what would come up for me. Because of how I've always reacted before. And because of what that meant before. Well, this is proof that that's not necessarily the case, but I do want to keep having the conversations.
Yeah, this is fun. I want to do this more. Thank you for being a part of the conversation, guys. I've been like checking in with some of the comments and like some really awesome stuff. Brig, thank you for being part of this. Russell, Nick just walked in. Kelly,
oh my gosh,
that question was like so well thought out.
And thank you for bringing this up in the community spaces as well. I didn't want to say that like with any more context than that, but thank you. And the message that I got, I did read it a little while ago, like in full, and I love you. I love that you're part of my community. I just love you.
And thank you, Vice. I've had like such a newfound appreciation and excitement around figuring out what's going on in the world. And
just trust to learn from learn information from them, and then I trust myself to be able to come up with my own. You know, granted, someone early on in our conversation said Vice is leftist trash garbage.
What?
Somebody
because something.
I
don't know. Something happened that was questionable recently, but I don't know.
Questionable recently, but
people are flawed. organizations are flawed. The world is fucking flawed.
What to do?
Believe it or not, I'm flawed. She doesn't believe it. She knows I'm perfect. Good night.